Most people believe overthinking is a flaw, a glitch in the mind that needs to be switched off. But psychology tells a very different story. Some minds don't wander, they investigate. Carl Jung observed that the psyche often works hardest in the places we're told to ignore. For the overthinker, that place is the space between a thought and its resolution. Their minds don't loop because something is broken. They loop because something unfinished is demanding attention. While others move on quickly, overthinkers stay. They replay, reconsider, rehearse. They often feel exhausting to themselves, restless, over-analytical, unable to simply let things go. Yet this restlessness is not dysfunction, it is vigilance. Overthinkers process before they trust. They feel deeper before they decide. When they finally commit to something, they do not commit lightly. They commit completely. Their certainty doesn't arrive fast. It arrives thorough. This is not a story about anxiety. It's about pattern recognition, protection, and why some minds must exhaust every possibility before they can rest in a single one. If you've ever been told you think too much, this video will explain why that might be the most useful thing about you. Most overthinkers spend years believing something is wrong with their mind. They watch others make decisions instantly, move through conversations without a second thought, while they replay a 5-minute exchange for 3 days. Society quietly teaches them that speed is proof of confidence. Quick answers become evidence of intelligence. Certainty becomes evidence of strength. And anyone who deliberates internalizes a subtle sense of failure. But psychology reveals something far more useful. Not all minds are built to skim the surface. Some are built to scan for what others miss. Their thinking happens beneath the visible layer, in ways that cannot be measured by how fast someone replies or how confident someone sounds. What looks like hesitation is often pattern detection without a name yet. This kind of mind is not built for quick reaction. It is built for accuracy. In early life, most people are taught to trust their first instinct, to move, to answer, to act. For overthinkers, the first instinct rarely feels complete. They sense the parts other people skip past, the exception, the contradiction, the thing that doesn't quite add up. They aren't slower because they're less capable. They're slower because they're tracking more variables than the moment seems to require. They may try to force themselves into fast decisions, quick replies, snap judgments that don't fit. Each attempt leaves a residue of doubt, reinforcing the belief that they are somehow behind. But beneath that frustration, something essential is happening. The mind is refusing to accept an answer it hasn't verified. This is uncomfortable, and it takes time. Overthinkers are often more perceptive, more attuned to nuance, more resistant to convenient conclusions. Their minds refuse shortcuts. While others learn to move fast and adjust later, overthinkers are unconsciously learning to get it right the first time. That difference costs them hours, sometimes days. They may appear indecisive, cautious, or stuck, but internally they are cross-referencing. Past experiences, small inconsistencies, unspoken subtext, the gap between what someone said and what they meant. This accumulation forms a kind of internal radar. Without it, their decisions would be faster, but far less reliable. Many overthinkers experience daily life as a constant background hum of unfinished calculation. They know what feels off long before they can explain why. And that absence of a quick explanation feels like weakness in a world obsessed with certainty. But certainty that comes too fast is often shallow. Overthinkers are not settling for shallow. They are building something layered. Their conclusions are not guesses. They are the result of a mind that checked every angle before letting go. Every repeated thought sharpens their read on a person or situation. Every replayed conversation refines their sense of what was really happening beneath the words. Over time, something rare begins to form: precision. This is why overthinkers often catch what others miss entirely. A shift in someone's tone, a decision that will backfire in 6 months, a risk hidden inside something that looks safe. Their minds matured around detail long before their confidence caught up to match it. And this imbalance is not a flaw. Psychologically, they are compensating for a world that rewards speed over depth. While fast deciders build confidence through action, overthinkers build accuracy through examination. The cost is time. The reward is being right more often than it looks like they should be. At this stage, most overthinkers still don't feel sharp. They feel tired, they feel behind. They may even feel envious watching others move through decisions that seem effortless. But what they don't see yet is that many fast decisions are simply unexamined ones, not braver, just quicker to arrive and quicker to unravel. Overthinkers catch their own mistakes early so they don't repeat them later. Their minds refuse to let them settle on an answer prematurely, keep circling until something solid emerges. And solid conclusions cannot be rushed. They require repetition, comparison, and long stretches of internal review. This is why overthinkers often need silence, distance from noise and constant input, not because they dislike people, but because processing requires room. Their minds demand space to finish what they started. This isn't wasted time, it's refinement. They are not stalling, they are stress testing an idea before it has to hold weight in the real world. And when a conclusion finally settles, it doesn't need to be defended loudly. It holds on its own. As time passes, the overthinker begins to notice a strange advantage. Externally, they seem slow to respond. Internally, they are already 3 steps ahead. While others react to what's happening now, the overthinker is already modeling what happens next. This is not anxiety, though it's often mistaken for it. It's forecasting. They start asking questions most people skip. What is this decision actually going to cost me in 6 months? What am I not seeing because it's uncomfortable to see? What would this look like if I were wrong? These questions don't produce quick comfort. They produce tension. Overthinkers often live inside this tension for long stretches. They feel torn between wanting to move and needing to be sure. This creates hesitation, frustration, and a chronic sense of almost decided, almost ready, almost sure. From the outside, it looks like overanalysis. From the inside, it feels like due diligence. Because acting on the wrong read too early costs more than waiting a little longer for the right one. This is why overthinkers often walk away from things that look fine to everyone else. Deals that seem profitable but feel off. People who seem charming but don't add up. Plans that promise ease at the cost of ignoring a warning sign. Each time they hesitate, they lose speed, but they preserve accuracy. And that trade comes with a cost. Overthinkers often carry quiet guilt. Guilt for asking too many questions. Guilt for slowing a group down. Guilt for needing more time when everyone else seems ready to move. Over time, this guilt can calcify into self-doubt. They begin to wonder if they're overcomplicating things that should be simple, if their caution is really just fear wearing a smarter costume. But their mind doesn't let them fully believe that. Every time they try to force a fast, careless decision just to keep up, something resists focus, scatters, unease rises, or a quiet dread sets in. This isn't weakness. It's the mind refusing to skip a step it knows matters. Overthinkers are often misread here. People assume they lack confidence. In reality, they're protecting against the specific cost of being confidently wrong. This long habit of double-checking builds something valuable: discernment. Overthinkers become unusually good at sensing what doesn't hold up: exaggeration, inconsistency, a plan with a hole no one else noticed. What once felt like paranoia now reads as instinct. Slowly, their internal filter sharpens. They begin to recognize patterns in their own past overthinking, not as proof of anxiety, but as a record of what their gut was right about. Each overanalyzed decision that turned out to be correct becomes evidence, not of dysfunction, but of a working system. Over time, their thinking becomes less scattered and more targeted. This is often the loneliest stretch, because fast movers don't wait around for a second opinion, and other overthinkers are hard to find in a world that prizes speed. There's a sense of being caught between two approaches, Too slow for the fast crowd, too decisive for the anxious label people tried to give them. This in-between space is uncomfortable, but it's also where the shift happens. The overthinker starts relying less on how confident something sounds and more on whether it actually checks out. They begin trusting their own read, even when it disagrees with the room. This is the quiet start of real judgment. They may not have speed yet. They may not have certainty yet. But they are no longer being talked out of what they've already worked out. And that shift changes everything. Because once someone stops asking, "How do I look like I know?" and starts asking, "Do I actually know?" their decision-making changes permanently. The process may still take time, but the accuracy becomes undeniable. This is why when overthinkers finally act, they don't waver. They commit, not out of pressure, but out of thoroughness. What looks sudden from the outside is really the release of a decision that was already finished internally, just quietly, without an announcement. There comes a point where overthinking stops being a burden and starts being a filter. The same mind that once replayed a text message for 2 hours can now spot a bad deal in 13 seconds because it's not new anxiety. It's the same pattern recognition machine, just finally trusted. By this stage, something fundamental shifts. The overthinker isn't trying to become decisive. They're trying to apply the decisiveness they've quietly been building all along. The spiraling that once caused paralysis now produces precision. They no longer ask, "What if I'm wrong?" They ask, "What specifically would make this wrong, and is that actually present here?" This distinction matters. Earlier, every option felt risky because nothing had been fully checked. Now most options resolve quickly because the checking has become instinctive. The field narrows, not because there are fewer choices, but because their filter runs faster without losing depth. Overthinkers who reach this stage move with an unusual kind of calm. They're not chasing certainty for its own sake anymore. They're responding to a mind that has already done the work. This is why their decisions start to look different from everyone else's. Quieter, more deliberate, less reactive. Their choices are rarely loud, but they're rarely wrong either. People start noticing that this person doesn't second-guess out loud anymore. They ask sharp questions, then go quiet, then decide, and rarely revisit it. That combination, depth without hesitation, is rare, and it earns trust without asking for it. Importantly, overthinkers at this stage still overthink. The instinct doesn't vanish. The difference is that it no longer runs the whole show. They've lived with their own internal loop, long enough to know which spirals are useful and which are just noise. They trust their filtered read more than their initial panic, because they've already seen that filtered read hold up, again and again. This is why overthinkers often handle high-stakes decisions better than people who claim to trust their gut blindly. A wrong call doesn't shatter their confidence. It gets absorbed into the pattern library and makes the next read sharper. They're no longer trying to prove they can decide fast. They're refining how well they decide, period. Over time, a different kind of reputation builds. Not the reputation of someone quick. Their read on people, plans, and risks starts to compound. Others begin coming to them, not for a fast answer, but for the answer that's actually been thought through. Overthinkers often become the quiet second opinion everyone secretly wants before making a big call. They talk less about the process now, but what they say carries more weight, because it usually holds up. This is also why overthinkers tend to handle uncertainty differently as they mature. While many people panic when a plan falls apart, overthinkers feel something closer to readiness. They've already modeled the failure case. It isn't a surprise, it's a scenario they priced in a long time ago. Their earlier spirals now make sense. The hours spent turning over a decision weren't wasted, they were rehearsal. The distance from people who moved too fast wasn't isolation. It was protection from decisions they hadn't earned yet. The mistakes weren't proof they couldn't decide. They were the raw data that built the filter they now trust. By the time real responsibility arrives, if it arrives at all, the overthinker isn't overwhelmed by it. Their thinking becomes an asset instead of a burden. Judgment becomes an extension of preparation, not a replacement for it. And that's the quiet paradox of the overthinker's mind. They decide later. But when they decide, they rarely have to decide twice. They are not trying to catch up to fast movers anymore. Fast movers start coming to them instead. One of the least discussed truths about overthinkers is this: by the time their judgment is finally recognized, they're no longer chasing recognition for it. They've already lived with the discomfort of being unsure, of being second-guessed, of watching faster people get credit for guesses that happen to land. So when their judgment is finally trusted, it doesn't inflate them. It simply confirms something they already knew quietly. This is where the overthinker separates from the impulsive decider completely. Fast decisions often create dependence on being right immediately, on looking sure even when they aren't. Overthinkers, by contrast, arrive at trust after scrutiny. They know their read holds up, which means they don't need everyone else to validate it in the moment. Psychologically, this is a position of quiet strength. Overthinkers stop over-explaining their reasoning. A wrong guess doesn't define them, because their sense of judgment was built across hundreds of quiet reps, not one lucky call. As a result, they carry an unusual steadiness under pressure. They are hard to rush, hard to pressure into a decision that doesn't sit right, hard to talk out of a read they've already verified. This steadiness can look like confidence, but it's something more specific. Earned trust in their own process. Because they spent so long checking their own thinking, overthinkers develop an internal accuracy that others often lack. They learn to tell the difference between anxious noise and a real signal, a skill most people never have to build, because they never sit with the discomfort long enough to separate the two. Over time, this builds a mind that can hold complexity without freezing. That's why overthinkers often perform best in exactly the situations that break other people. Ambiguous ones, high-stakes ones, ones without a clear right answer yet. They don't need the picture to be simple. Their whole skill set exists for when it isn't. Where others feel panic in uncertainty, overthinkers feel familiar ground. They understand that good judgment isn't instant, it's assembled. Because their own thinking develops slowly, they trust slow, careful processes in general. This makes them exceptional at spotting long-term risk. It also makes them quietly dangerous in negotiation, planning, and any situation where being right eventually matters more than being fast right now. Not in a combative sense, but in a patient one. Overthinkers don't burn their judgment on every decision. They save it, they deploy it selectively. And when they finally commit to a read, they don't abandon it at the first sign of pressure. Somewhere in this stage, the old resentment fades. Earlier, watching fast deciders get praised for guesses could feel unfair. But once the overthinker trusts their own process, comparison loses its grip. They stop measuring their pace against people running a completely different kind of calculation. This produces something like peace, but also boundaries. Overthinkers stop apologizing for needing time. They stop pretending to be certain before they are. They stop explaining a process most people were never going to sit through anyway. This can feel unfamiliar to people who knew them when they seemed unsure of everything. The same person who once agonized over small choices now says, "Give me a minute," and means exactly that, no more, no less. And a mind that stopped performing certainty, but has actually earned it, unsettles people in the best way. By now, the overthinker understands something most people never get to learn. Their mind was never the obstacle. It was the instrument. The looping, the replaying, the refusal to accept the first easy answer, none of it was wasted. It was training. If you've spent your life being told to stop overthinking, understand this. Your mind isn't malfunctioning. It's running a longer calculation than the room is used to waiting for. And when it finishes, it tends to be right in a way that shortcuts rarely are. If this perspective resonated with you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us. More insights like this are coming for those who know that real understanding takes time.